Hello once again to my friends at the liveactionanime.org forums. I am Thrashed Till Death, and I apologise for my lack of activity the last couple of months. It's been mostly down to a lack of material to review, but I'm here again today to uphold a pledge I made a little while back. A few months ago, forum member K-Pain PM'd me and asked me to review Afro Samurai. And I said I would, but that proved harder than I thought because for all intents and purposes it seemed to be out of print in this country. But it was just recently re-released with Afro Samurai Resurrection. So that means I finally got the opportunity to see the original 5-episode OVA. Of course, now that means I have to go and see Afro Samurai Resurrection as well and finally get around to seeing that, but if you're getting the impression that these reviews are just eternal cycle of playing catch up to new releases that are years old by the time I get around to them, then you're probably right. But in any case, I'm here to bring you today my opinion on Afro Samurai, the original series. So, the story to Afro Samurai is fairly simple. You've got this sort of futuristic, apocalyptic wasteland, which may or may not be feudal Japan. It's never entirely clear. And in this wasteland there's only one rule. There are two headbands, the number 1 headband and the number 2 headband. Anyone who possesses the number 1 headband is essentially God, and they're untouchable, except by the person who holds the number 2 headband. The only problem is that the person who holds the number 2 headband is compelled to challenge anyone else who wants to take that headband. And so that basically means his life is an eternal struggle to attain the number 1 headband and against everyone else who wants to challenge him for the number 2. So it picks up in a flashback where we see the young Afro Samurai, and what kind of cruel fuck would name the son Afro? I don't know, just roll with it. And his father is the number 1 samurai, he's like the number 1 fighter in the world. But Afro sees him get beheaded in front of his eyes by the present number 2 named Justice. And basically Justice challenges the young Afro that when he's old enough and when he's ready, he can come him and hunt him down and get vengeance. And, well, that's exactly what he does. Basically, Afro's whole life becomes a search for the number 2 headband, and once he gets it, a quest to reach Justice again and take his life for taking his father. And that's essentially the series. It's basically 5 episodes of Afro murdering everyone who stands in his way and trying to reach justice and take back the number 1 headband in order to honour his father's death. Now, Afro Samurai is made by Studio Gonzo, who are renowned as visual stylists within the anime world, but their storytelling can sometimes be a bit hit and miss. I mean, for every Last Exile and Gankutsuo, the Count of Monte Cristo they come up with, there seems to be another origin Spirits of the Past to take its place. And Afro Samurai, its primary problem is that whenever it isn't fighting, whenever Afro isn't carving someone up, it doesn't really know quite what to do with itself. It's just him wandering through the wasteland and his travelling companion, if you will, who's called Ninja. It just never stops with the names in this series. Who just constantly making cracks about the last fight, the fight they're going to do, cracking about the scenery, and it can get a bit grating and a bit slow at times. But that's just, I mean, it's 125 minutes long, the version I saw, and you could easily strip a good 25 minutes of those out. That's like a whole episode, and end up with a much tighter product at the end. It's a longer series than its running time justifies. With that said, while it lacks in complexity, it does make up for in scale. It has quite an interesting dynamic where it flashes back to Afro's childhood and the time he spent growing up in a dojo alongside a bunch of friends he had back then. And it sort of sees how he grew into the sort of bitter personality that he is today and how he damned himself by taking the number 2 headband. And it does sort of take on the sort of quality of this sort of large Trials of Hercules sort of quest, and there is a massive feeling of build-up to the final conflict with Justice, how this really is not just the ending of a single journey, but the absolute culmination of an entire life's goal. And in establishing that sort of tone, Afro Samurai is very successful. It has a great atmosphere to it. It's seriously enjoyable in that regard. The fights themselves are quite unlike anything I've really seen before. A lot of it seems to be conducted in really kinetic shots that flow between long shots and still shots and close-up shots, and it can be quite disorientating. But at the same time, it has a great sense of physicality to it. It's got a lot of kineticism in there, and it's extraordinarily well animated. I mean, it's Gonzo. You know what you're getting when you buy anything by that studio. And yeah, the fights are spectacular, generally speaking, and when Afro Samurai, who is voiced by Samuel L. Jackson, occurs as a massive badass, that's another aspect of the series that really shines through, is the voice acting in the English dub. Quite apart from Samuel L. Jackson playing both Afro Samurai and Ninja, who really does do this sort of dichotomy of the two personalities really well. You've also got Ron Perlman playing Justice, who might well be the best performance I've ever heard in a dub. He just sounds so unbelievably sinister and serpentine as the villain. It brings chills to the flesh every time you listen to him speak. And so, generally speaking, in terms of production values, Afro Samurai, have to separate the S's. Yeah, generally speaking, it's an excellent show in that respect. It does sort of suffer from flabby writing in places. I mean, but it harkens back to a sort of a simpler time in anime, if you will, when it was all about blood and tits and not much else. And it definitely delivers. If that's the sort of thing you're interested in, exploitation cinema in the sort of Ninja Scroll vein, that's what Afro Samurai delivers. It does sort of tack on a sort of bit of a moralizing message about how violence just begets more violence. And again, while it does that in a very dynamic way, it's not a terribly deep show. I mean, I don't think it really claims to be either. Violence begets more violence. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the revolutionary insight into human nature there, guys. But, yeah, if this is the sort of thing you're into, then Afro Samurai probably is recommendable. If nothing else, it probably takes a while to take off. The first couple of episodes are probably the low point of the series, where very little seems to be happening, and there's an awful lot of fan service when the character voiced by Kelly Hu turns up, and it's basically just turns into, the second episode is basically just a whole long procrastination sequence about Afro Samurai dwelling on his libido. But we get past that, and once you get into episode 3 and 4, it starts to get a lot more intense and a lot more interesting. And that's where it really started to pick up for me. So, yeah, as long as you can accept that it's a flawed series and it's not a terribly deep series, Afro Samurai is worth checking out. It's in a way, it's a welcome return to when anime was just a sort of unashamed adult form of entertainment, and you know, it's perfectly good fun. It's like Appleseed, only with more gore, and you know, that's perfectly respectable for what it sets out to be. It's not as good as Ninja Scroll. Ninja Scroll, in terms of exploitation anime, it's still at the top of its field, but this is definitely a worthy addition to the sort of canon of exploitation action anime, if you will. So seek it out if that's your particular milieu. On the 4-star scale, I reckon it's a 2.5 star. I mean, I was tempted to give it a 3, but it was I think that probably in terms of structural flaws, it just the The pros weigh out the cons, but not by that much, you know? But yeah, seek it out if you enjoy this kind of thing, and you will enjoy it. It's pretty much a safe buy. So yeah, K-Pain, if that's what you wanted to hear, then thanks for watching. If not, then you've already watched it, so there's not much you can do now, is there? So yeah, I'll be back soon, hopefully reviewing something else, whatever catches my eye next. So until next time, I'm thrashed till death. Goodbye.